You sit down at the same desk, open the exact same app, and feel absolutely nothing. The fire from Monday is gone by Thursday. You are left staring at a blank screen, wondering where the energy went. We are conditioned to blame ourselves when this happens. We assume it's a lack of willpower, poor discipline, or that our underlying reason for starting just was not strong enough. But your brain did not walk away from this new habit because of weakness. It walked away because it simply could not see a single shred of proof that you were getting anywhere at all. You poured effort into a hole, and the hole gave you nothing back, no signal. Which forces us to look at a very uncomfortable possibility. We have been told that motivation is the engine that drives action. But what if we have the sequence completely backward? Think about the times you actually put in the hard work. You read for 20 minutes, closed the heavy book, and there is no physical mark anywhere that it happened.
You eat well for a whole day, but the scale does not move. As far as your nervous system is concerned, without a receipt, that day was invisible. The effort was real, but the signal generated was zero. And a habit running on zero signal has a very short shelf life. Motivation is not the required fuel you need to start an action. It is the downstream effect of watching yourself move. To understand exactly how this works, we have to look at a study from Harvard researchers Teresa Amabile and Kramer. They wanted to figure out what makes a workday actually feel good from the inside, so they asked hundreds of employees to keep daily work diaries. They kept this up for months. By the end, the researchers were sitting on more than 12,000 of these entries. 12,000 honest, real-time snapshots of human drive. If you ask most people what drives a great day, they guess external rewards, maybe a bonus, a massive win, or a boss noticing your work. The data showed those things hardly mattered. Across all 12,000 diaries, the single biggest driver of a good inner workday was making real, visible progress on something meaningful. Even tiny steps forward lifted people more than almost anything else. The researchers called it the progress principle. It reveals that the fuel keeping us engaged is not the finish line. It is the literal sensation of forward movement, the feeling of being further along right now than you were this morning. To figure out why a tiny step forward moves us so much, we have to look at the wiring. Specifically, we have to clear up a massive misconception about dopamine. It is often called the pleasure chemical, or a reward molecule. That is mostly wrong. This chart shows how dopamine actually functions. It fires for the surprise. Your brain makes constant predictions about what is going to happen next along a baseline of expected outcomes. When reality beats those expectations, you get a sharp spike. Scientists call this a reward prediction error. Looking at the graph again, you can see what happens when you put in effort but leave no visible trace. Because there is no external evidence, your brain predicts that nothing happened. The effort is there, but the baseline remains completely flat. You get zero chemical release. But watch what happens when we introduce a clear, visible sign of progress. That small checkmark drops in, and it acts as a tiny positive surprise. It beats the baseline prediction of zero, giving your reward system a literal data point to read, causing a rapid spike. That weird, almost embarrassing satisfaction you get from crossing an item off a to-do list, that is your brain finally receiving the data it needs to trigger the motivation loop. In 2016, a team led by researcher Benjamin Harkin gathered data from 138 separate studies, covering nearly 20,000 people. They were looking to answer one specific question. Does the simple act of tracking your progress, without any extra psychological tricks, actually push you closer to your goals? The answer was a definitive yes. But the data revealed something crucial. The effect was massively amplified when that progress was physically written down. Tracking that lived purely inside your head did very little. Tracking that lived on a piece of paper did far more. And the effect grew even stronger under a second condition, when the recorded progress was made public, out where someone else could actually see it. Amabile's diaries showed us that visible movement drives us. The neurochemistry shows us that dopamine needs a visible surprise to fire, and Harkin's statistics prove the practical application. You do not summon motivation, you manufacture it by making your progress impossible to miss. But there is a danger built into this mechanism. The progress principle has a warning label.
Small setbacks damage your motivation far more intensely than small wins build it up. This graphic illustrates exactly how we accidentally trigger those setbacks. When you stare at a massive, distant finish line, your brain only registers the giant chasm left to cross. Every tiny step forward is swallowed by the overwhelming remaining distance. You are manufacturing a daily setback signal. A psychologist named Carl Weick identified the fix for this brain-freezing scale back in 1984. He called it the strategy of small wins. The solution is to shrink the frame. Stop focusing on the entire war. Define a completable, modest step. Achieving those tiny steps builds a momentum that obsessing over a massive goal actively destroys. So here is how you build this into your week. Pick one brutally small habit. Define what counts as a win in a way that makes it almost impossible to fail. Not a grueling workout, just showing up. Then make that win leave a physical trace. Draw a thick mark on a paper calendar next to your desk. Analog tracking by hand carries significantly more biological weight than swiping on a screen. You might be thinking this is just a streak, and streaks eventually break and ruin everything. But a typical streak is punishing because it measures perfection. We are building an evidence log, which simply records history. In an evidence log, a single missed day does not equal total failure. It is just one quiet moment inside a long, highly visible history of success. Those 11 previous marks you made are still right there, telling your brain the real story. Stop trying to feel your way into action. Make your progress visible. Build the evidence first. Let your brain read the signal, and the motivation will arrive on its own.